Are you feeling stressed, overwhelmed, tired, and plain old demotivated? Maybe it's time to take a break. Hi, and welcome to the Law Simplified, the world's largest independent online law school platform. I'm your instructor, Shaveen Bandardanayaka. Ask any athlete or sportsperson, and apart from the emphasis that they put on training, on practice, working out and getting fit, they will try and impress upon you an equal amount of appreciation and importance on rest and recovery. As many athletes and sportspersons will tell you, your body tends to take a toll when you're training for a particular sport or an activity and requires an equal amount of time for the muscles to recover and regenerate. Now, on a number of occasions on this very YouTube channel, as well as the different platforms the Law Simplified is disseminated on, I've tried to impress upon you and parallel the life and technique of an athlete or a sportsperson to that of a law student. If you take a salient look at the How to Ace a Law Degree or How to Ace a Law Exam playlist on this very YouTube channel, you'll notice a plethora of videos talking about just that. How you can optimize your period of study, how you can allocate your time, and more importantly, how you can put pen to paper when it comes to an examination, assessment, or assignment. However, one aspect of studying or preparing for a law degree, an examination at that I've often not really spoken about is how important rest and recovery and taking a break is in terms of your overall preparation and mental health. But this doesn't equate to how most of you might be thinking of taking a break or taking a rest when studying. Oftentimes, I've been communicated by my fast track and masterclass students from all around the world that each individual person, based on the way in which they prepare, tends to inculcate a rest or a break based on completion of a certain volume of content on the one hand, or a number of minutes or hours. While this does seem like a logical way of going about it, and from a mental standpoint, you're able to knock off something from a list, so to speak, that you've done an hour or 2 hours per day, it's not the optimum way of training your brain to not just absorb information, but retain it as well. This video is intended to essentially communicate or impress on you one very particular technique that I've found helpful for myself. Now, on a daily basis, I conduct roughly 8 to 10 hours, between 8 to 10 hours of fast track and masterclass programs for students from all around the world. These students may gravitate towards examinations and preparing for those examinations. It might be LLB, GDL, LLM, and in some instances, even PhD students. What's interesting about what I do is that I get to not just interact with students from all around the world, but also different subject areas back to back. It might be contract law, criminal law in the morning, but moving on to property, trust law, intellectual property in the evening or night. As a result, rest and recovery, even for myself, is doubly important. The reason for this is because from the perspective of a muscle, my brain wears and tears as much as yours. So as a result, a technique that I have implemented myself is something that perhaps you can use as well. Rest when you are unable to understand. What do I mean by this? Oftentimes when you study a particular subject, a particular topic at that, there is a barrier or a wall that you will encounter at any given point of time. This wall, as a student who's just commencing their study, may arrive much sooner than someone a bit more experienced, perhaps in the second or third year. Oftentimes it might be 5 minutes into it or 10 minutes into it. The way in which you understand is attached directly to your interest and focus. So at some stages, you might see yourself getting distracted. This point of distraction is what we need to identify and, in the context of a goalpost, start moving forward. So over time, as you try and absorb more and more information, you'll move away from the usual 5 minutes or 10 minutes of focus and move exponentially to 20, 30, 40. And at one point, and from experience, I know that it doesn't go beyond this, 60 minutes, 1 hour. At the moment you find yourself being distracted, that you are no longer sufficiently focused, is what I mean by a lacking of understanding. That is when you stop understanding what you're reading. Take your break at that moment. And I'm not talking about a break of 5 minutes or 10 minutes. I'm telling you to take a break to the equivalent time frame that you did to study. So if you are a full-time student, for instance, for every hour that you put in to study, put another hour in similarly for rest. And during this time frame, do whatever you want. Anything and everything except for law, and in particular, the subject or the topic that you were going through. Focus is as important as retention and the ability to apply it later on in an examination or an assessment. And when it comes to study, while every single person is built differently in the way they absorb and understand, there tends to be certain similarities and generic attributes of how our brain works. Irrespective of the time that you put in, irrespective of the effort that you put in, just like any sport, your body, your brain requires rest and recovery. Don't ever think that that is less important than the effort that you're actually putting into it, because your effort becomes in vain if you're unable to apply that which you've learnt at the right or the opportune moment at an examination. That being said, until the next time that we meet, have fun, stay safe, and as always, obey the law.